We're going to talk about how to sequence, and I'm going to go over some basic parts of a sequencer. Just happens to be performer, but pretty much any sequencer that you get will do pretty much all these aspects. There's going to be ability for you to record, quantize, cut and paste, and all that fun stuff. So when I first open up performer, what does it sort of look like to y'all? Just by looking at it, especially this top part up here.
A graph.
How about this part up here?
Like Windows Media Player or something.
Okay, or anything else to sort of look like?
A jam box.
Jam box. Back in the old days, we had something called a tape recorder. and back in the ancient times, well, there's a stop button, rewind, play, pause, and record button. So looks similar to a. Sometimes folks say it looks similar to a CD player, but really most CD players don't have a record button on it. They do have a fast forward and play and rewind. Over here, this is the measure, this is the beat, and this is the part of the beat. So right now, it's measure 1, beat 1 on the downbeat. This particular program has 480 clicks for every quarter note. So that's how accurate it is. You know, if you think about that, if you try to play 480 different times in a quarter note, no one can do it. I mean, it's impossible. So if I type in 479 there, it's almost right before, but as soon as I type in 480, look what happens. Bam. Whoops. It jumps to the next beat, because that's how many clicks we have in each beat. And usually, you don't have to worry about that too much, but I just want you to know how accurate it does actually record. It actually records pretty accurate with the sequencers. And some sequencers do more or less than that. And most of them, some of them actually do like 960 per quarter note. So you get really super accurate with that point there. Just for fun, if 460 is the quarter note, what would an eighth note be?
2/3. No, 960.
If 480 is the is a quarter note, what's half of that?
240.
240. Okay, and then 120 would be 16th, and then 60 would be.
Oh, okay.
See how that works? Now, if I wanted a half note, it'd be times 480 times that, 960, right? Over here is the tempo, and you can start off at 120 or 108, depending on how fast you want to. You can go up to 400 and down to 20, so somewhere in that range there. And that's what would be 120 just to have it. And you can type on there as well. If I click on that, say 120 or 144. You're not quite accurate with your hand, you just type in there. Okay. Now let me show you the basics of sequencing. Basically, I got this little red button out here to the side, over there, and that's what I call the record bullet, basically. And what that means, I'm going to bring out just a touch for the camera. Okay. What that means is that's the track I'm going to record on. So I'm just going to basically just do a simple recording. I have the recorded bullet on, track 1. I'm going to hit record up here, and as soon as whatever I start playing in there, it puts it up there. I hit stop, rewind, hit play. It played back exactly what I played in there. One of the most important parts of sequencing is to realize this. When I'm using Midi, and what Midi is basically a language that talks from the keyboard to the computer. It's a program type language. It's a language like any other language. And what it records is program information, performance data. Think of this as like a piano roll. If you have a player piano roll without a player piano, it's not going to play back. So if I do this, if I hit play, but I turn off the keyboard, nothing happens, because all of this it's not recording audio; it's recording performance information. I turn the keyboard back on, take a second to boot up, and then hit that and hit play. It'll start playing again. And if you want to see what the computer thinks what's going on, this is all the little data. And back in the olden days, I had to type all that junk in by hand. So back in the ancient days, and so this to play something like that, it took a good minute or so to kind of type in 3 chords. And after a while, you got a little bit faster at it, but not near as fast as what you could actually play in there. And if you look there, there's the measure, the beat, the part of the beat, the note I played, how hard I hit it, how hard I released it. how long, and so there's a whole bunch of numbers that are there. Just like a word processor, in a lot of ways I think of a sequencer as a musical word processor. I can highlight what I don't want and hit delete or backspace and it goes away. So just like a word processor, and I can say I'm going to undo that. And just like a word processor, if I highlight it, I can say copy, put the cursor where I want it, and hit paste. I can do that as well. So just like a word processor, I can go through and edit various things with this. Now since you guys are all pianists, you guys know how to play piano, which is usually rare when I teach these classes. Most folks don't play piano very well, but you guys can all play piano really well. In this particular program, there's two places that says patch, and what we want is the default patch. And what the default patch does is I click on it there. I have 128 sounds I can pick from. So we're going to do that erase. That's going to play back on a piano right now. Okay, but if I change this, and let me say I want to change that to an organ. Because this is only performance data. It's not audio. I can go through and say, instead of being a piano tone, I want it to be an organ, I want it to be a flute, I want it to be a string. I can change it to whatever sound, and that makes you guys' life a lot easier. You can play something in on piano, then you can copy and paste it and say, well, now I want this for strings, I want this for trumpets or whatever from that point on. So once you get the idea that this is not audio, like when you go record, if you take a tape recorder to the piano room, you're going to record playing piano. You can't really change the timbre of the piano. With the computer, you can. With the MIDI, you can do that. So let's go over some basic steps that you guys are going to need, because I know that you guys count, and which is good. I'll click on the little metronome that's right up there, and if I double click on it, it opens up this little box here. Make sure it says MIDI and internal speaker, because sometimes folks turn that off, and make sure it says MIDI channel 10, JB3010 on it. If you don't hit it, click one of those things are just turned off. So, and now I got that on there. Over here, I did the box there for one. It's going to give me one measure for nothing. So 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hit rewind. And I need to turn it off, or else it's going to count 2, 3, 4, and I play back what I put in there. If I didn't want to hear that, I can turn it off. So usually what I do is I use that for a click track for either the bass line or percussion. Then I turn off the metronome, and then I use the click track. Some people keep the metronome on for the whole time, which is fine. If you're into if you like to have that, that's fine. So let me make sure you guys know how to do that one more time. So there's a lot of stuff we're talking about. Hit the metronome, hit the bars on there, and if you didn't want to change that, I'll double click on the metronome there and say, I want 2 bars, or 4 bars, or, I guess you need to at least have 1 bar, or else it's not really useful. A lot of people like having 2 bars for nothing, especially at a fast tempo. I like 1 measure, personally. That's just kind of what I'm used to doing. And I hit record, 2, 3, 4. And it's going to play back exactly what I put in there. So what I'm going to do real quick, and again, forgive my piano skills, they're okay, but they're not near the level that you guys have. But I'm just going to make a quick pop type song and show you how I would do it. All right. So first thing I'm going to do, I have a piano there, and all this. This is another thing that I use, where I call this the magic finger. And what it does, it waits for any piece of performance data to start to record. So as soon as I press a note, it starts to record. So if you want to play right on the downbeat, that's a really handy way to use that. Most sequencers have that. Now, because if you think, what is performance data? What's all the performance data that you have on the piano? Obviously you got the keys, right? That's performance data. Is there anything else that's performance data?
The hammers.
The pedal. So if I hit the same pedal, it starts to record also. if I hit the, you guys don't have this on the center piano, but if I hit the vibrato switch, it starts to record. So anything that's performance data, it will record. It will keep that off. All right, so let's see if we can come up with something kind of cool. Let's see if I can remember that chord progression. I'm going to put this on MIDI channel 2 here. I'm going to pick me a bass. And let's say I'll pick acoustic bass. And what I have to do on the keyboard is I have to put in on the, because I don't have these, I have these set up where you have to manually put in the tracks, so this makes life a little bit easier for me in this lab. I'm going to put that on 2. So whatever track I'm recording on, MIDI channel 2, I need to have that on the keyboard, and that's going to have the sounds. All right, so let's see, 1, let's see. Okay, and because I like synthesizers, let me put some type of strings or something on there. Let's say orchestra strings, and I'll put that's on MIDI channel 3. So what does the keyboard need to be at?
3.
On 3. Let's see. I probably do like some type of inverted pedal. Let's see if we can just do that. And if I want to, I can do another. Just for fun, we'll do some. Let's do another ensemble, some brass ensemble or something.
You could do your ba-dup here, your long shorts here if you wanted with your brass fills, you know, that Dr. Lodge was talking about.
See if I can do something like that. And this one here, I'm not going to play on the downbeat, so I'm just going to turn it off. Okay, so that's the harmony part basically. I could go put a melody in there if I want to. I sort of have one that way. In MIDI, there's one special channel you need to know. MIDI channel 10. And on the keyboards, for some reason, these rolling keyboards have 0 as 10. I don't know why, but it does. So you just hit 0, and that's the percussion. And that's the percussion track. And I'm just going to put on standard kit for right now. So I have all these different percussion sounds on this. So I'll do like a standard rock beat. And this one here, maybe I'll put the metronome on so I can sort of be on the. Okay, now turn off the metronome, turn that off, and let's hear what I got. And that'd be something like what you want them to do, basically, right? Have like 4 or 5 parts going on with percussion and whatnot. Okay. Any questions on that there? The hardest part is syncing up the MIDI channel with the keyboard. So if you understand that, if you're recording on MIDI channel 1, your keyboard needs to be on what? 1. If you're on MIDI channel 10, your keyboard needs to be on
0.
Yeah, 10 or 0 in rolling place. Make sense? Okay. If you get that, you're golden. To pick the sounds, you can click on the track you want to go on. The ones, in this particular case here, the ones with the number signs you can't use. They're altered ones, and this keyboard didn't have them. But the ones with the pluses work. But all like that, but without anything on it, you can just use those, like the square wave. So if I want a square wave. But if I put that on School Days, I don't get any sound because this keyboard didn't have that sound. And what happened was this. If you see, like some of these have the same number twice on here. In general MIDI, we have 128 sounds. And some keyboards have where you have altered sounds on it, and some don't. This actually has more sounds into it, but at first I think it's easier for you guys to use 128 sounds, make life easier. And with 128 sounds, you should be able to find some pretty cool sounds with that by itself. All right? Good. This is definitely going to be a crash course. So if I like that stuff, let's say that's my A section, I can highlight all that, copy, put the cursor where I want it, paste it. Whoops, I need to highlight all the areas that I want to paste it to. So I can do an A, B, A section pretty quickly that way. All right?
So anywhere that the line is, that's where, so you can, if you don't want piano for a long time, you can just click it later.
Yeah, yeah.
You go back into the piano form.
One other thing that we can do that's kind of cool is, let's say you have something in the key of C, which is this is. Now let's say that you need to transpose it. Well, with MIDI, you can do that relatively easy. Under this region area, hit transpose, and say we'll go from C, say to E flat. And I can actually play that on the keyboard. And let's hit apply. Let's see if we did it. So if you get something, and that happens all the time, you get something in a key and no one can sing it, so you need to transpose it either up or down. And usually, you find thirds. I mean, sometimes you can do fifths, right?
Right. But then generally, if they go up or down a third, that's enough.
That's usually enough, right? Thirds.
Generally.
Yeah. So that's always handy. And you notice what did not highlight? The drums, because I don't want to transpose the drums because the drums, are mapped to their certain area. So I just highlighted all the stuff that's harmony or chords, and then I can transpose that relatively easy. All right?
Have any of you used the sequencer already?
No.
You
I
haven't.
think Sam has, right?
Sam has. Molly, you haven't.
Use the acid phone.
Okay, yeah, and that's a kind of a loop-based sequencer, yeah. And
What about you, Sam? What did you use?
You showed me some stuff,
Okay.
and then I used the same program.
Cold wave.
let me show you, because this is sort of a crash course. When this button here is what they call the overdub button. And this button right there's the overdub button. And what that allows me to do, I'm going to hit the third one here. And this is how drum machines, this is how you usually make beats on drum machines. I'll just do it first and then I'll talk about it. There's some medium drums. Let's be on mid channel 10. I got ears, I know it's not perfectly aligned together, but it's easier to go through and with one finger at a time to do what they call loop overdub. Loop overdub, where basically I'll take those 4 measures and just overdub the parts. And that way, I guess I should have the metronome on there. That would have been a little bit tighter if I did that. It's drum machine. That's how drum machines work. They have that loop overdub recording on it, and that's a good way to make your drums. You can also do the same things. Well, I show this for folks that don't play piano, but you guys can all play chords. I mean, you could theoretically play a chord one finger at a time if you have to. For you guys, that shouldn't be a problem. Let me do that one more time. I'll do that a little bit shorter one. I'm going to hit the overdub button, hit the loop, and this time I'm going to pull this down to 2 measures to make it a little bit shorter. I'll use the metronome this time before we're going to measure. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. So I keep on layering stuff all day long that way, and that's called loop overdub recording. And then once I get something I like, because it's 2 measures long, I'm going to highlight that, copy, put the cursor where I want it, paste it, and I keep doing that forever. Some things to think about, because you guys are going to make something that's, you know, basically musical bass, or, I mean, it could be a lot of various things. Drum beats, the way I usually make drum beats is I think what a drummer does. Think of the typical trap set. How many notes, how many sounds can a drummer have at one time? If you think of a typical trap set going on. So four at the max. And maybe 5 if the cymbal is still shouted to. So a lot of times for the percussion parts, I think less is a lot more. 4 things going on at the same time is more than enough. Sometimes 3 might be more than enough. 2 is enough a lot of times. You don't have to make it super complicated to add some rhythm to it. And a lot of times people get really complicated on the rhythms for the percussion, and you really don't need that as much. Okay. That's good. One last thing, and this is really, really cool. Let's say you got something that you can't quite play up the tempo. You like that? So let's say I'll just make something up and see what I can do. Kind of bad. Alright. Now let's pretend that's up to 140. So even if you can't play it at full tempo, you could go through there and play it, take it down. I bet you can play almost anything half speed, right, at this point in your career. Almost everything. I can play almost everything at quarter speed, maybe. There's some stuff maybe my hands can't quite reach, but and the other thing is that you can do one hand at a time. You do the chords and then you do the bass line with the other hand, so you get some cool. And you can't just sync that up with yours. You can just do one hand at a time, and so forth. Okay, so there's a lot of possibilities that you can do, because you're basically, you're not making a live recording. You're multi-tracking, and that's the beauty of this, that you don't have to sit down there and have everything be perfect on the right right time. Any questions on this part? I think this is enough to at least get you guys started. I don't want to give you too much more than this.
Like if we got something on, then how would we save it?
Okay, it's file save. And you just type in the name of it. I'll like using the date, so 6. Now, one cool thing about about sequencers is that I can save as, instead of normal, the standard MIDI file, and I type in, because this is a Mac, I type MID at the end of it, and I hit save. You can take that to, and it's format 1. You can take that to Windows Media Player. You could take that to iTunes and make a CD out of it. Once you have a MIDI file of it, you can actually, and that's what we do when Brad brings those stuff over. I just take them to iTunes and make a CD out of it.
Unfortunately, they've been getting it to me, and before I have a chance to look at it, they're recording it. So, and then we do it. And I said, why don't I find out how you want to sing this first? And then, but anyway, so I hope they can use it.
Yeah.
It's a beginning.
Yeah, it's definitely something.
But
Okay.
that's great. iTunes, and then you burn. Then
Yeah, I just take the MIDI file into iTunes. It converts it to a WAV file. Now, it's not the greatest piano song in the world, but it'll work for vocalists.
Just for rehearsals.
Just for rehearsals. Yeah. So the other thing that you could do is, like, let's say I had pretend that's a 4-part harmony. Okay, and I only need I don't need a soprano. Take that part out. I can save this as a MIDI file and have the soprano be by themselves, and they can sing their own part with everybody else below them, or take the bass out and have everybody else. So there's a lot of possibilities that you can use a sequencer for. That with audio, if you had a recording of the C minor mass they're doing, and you just want to hear the bass line without the other stuff going on, well, if you have the audio recording, you can't just say, well, let me turn off the bass line so I can sing along with it. But with a MIDI file, you could do that if you play the parts in it.